My son Brandon sat at my kitchen table that Tuesday afternoon, his wife Tiffany beside him, and told me they would be transferring all my money to his account starting next month. Not asking, telling. He said I was getting older and might make poor financial decisions. His tone was cold, matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather. I just smiled and said nothing. He reminded me they would be back that evening for dinner, as they came 3 or 4 times every week. When they walked through my front door that night, both of them screamed. The looks on their faces were something I will never forget. Brandon stood frozen in the doorway, his hand still on the knob, mouth hanging open. Tiffany actually stumbled backward, grabbing his arm for support. They were staring into my living room, but it was not the living room they knew. Everything was gone. The sectional sofa where Brandon always sprawled to watch my television. The entertainment center with the flat screen they convinced me to buy 2 years ago, so they could watch sports when they came over. The coffee table, the end tables, the lamps, the bookshelf, the family photos that had lined the walls for decades. All of it, gone. In the middle of the bare room sat a folding card table and 2 metal folding chairs, the kind you rent for parties. Nothing else. I stood in the hallway watching them process what they were seeing. Brandon finally found his voice. What the hell happened here? His face was turning that mottled red color it gets when he is angry. Where is everything? Mom, what did you do? I walked past them into the empty living room. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor that had been hidden under rugs for 20 years. Cardboard moving boxes were stacked against one wall, all labeled and sealed with packing tape. I am moving, I said simply. I have been packing for 6 months. I sold most of the furniture or donated it. The movers took the big pieces yesterday. Tiffany rushed toward the kitchen, her heels clicking on the floor. I heard her gasp. She came back looking even more shocked. There is nothing in the kitchen either. No table, no dishes, just some paper plates and plastic forks. She looked at me like I had lost my mind. What is going on? Brandon was now walking through the house, going from room to room. I could hear him opening doors, his footsteps heavy and angry. He came back to the living room breathing hard. The bedrooms are empty. The guest room is empty. There is nothing left in this house. He stepped closer to me, his voice rising. Where are you moving? What have you done? I remained calm. I had practiced this moment in my head 1,000 times. I have secured a place at Meadowbrook Senior Living Community. It is an independent living facility about 15 minutes from here. I move in on Friday, 3 days from now. You what? Brandon exploded. You are moving into some old folks' home? Are you insane? You are perfectly healthy. You do not need to be in one of those places. It is not a nursing home, Brandon. It is independent living. I have my own apartment, my own kitchen. There are activities and a community. I have been planning this for months. Tiffany was shaking her head. This is crazy. This is exactly why we need to help you manage your finances. You are making irrational decisions. How much is this place costing you? That is my business, I said quietly. Brandon pulled out his phone. I am calling Angela. Our sister needs to know about this. Mom, you have clearly lost your ability to think straight. This proves we were right to offer to take over your accounts. He stepped away, already talking to Angela, his voice urgent and dramatic. I could hear him painting a picture of a mother in mental decline, making rash choices, throwing away her life. While he talked, his eyes fell on the card table. There were papers spread across it, legal documents. His face went pale as he walked over and picked them up. I watched him read, watched the color drain further from his face. What is this? His voice was barely a whisper now. Those are papers from my estate attorney, I said. His hands were shaking as he flipped through the pages. Tiffany rushed over to read over his shoulder. I saw the exact moment they understood what they were looking at. You put everything into a trust? Brandon's voice was strangled. An irrevocable trust? When? How? I met with an attorney 8 months ago. The trust was executed 2 weeks ago. All my assets are now in the trust. managed by a professional trustee who is not a family member. You cannot do this, Brandon said, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew I could. He kept reading. You needed my permission. You are too old to make decisions like this without consulting your family. Brandon, I am 68 years old, not 98. I am fully capable of making my own financial and legal decisions. The trust is legal, valid, and cannot be undone. I met with 3 different attorneys to make absolutely certain it was done correctly. Tiffany made a small sound, almost like a whimper. She was reading the trust document now, and I knew what she was seeing, the no contest clause. The provisions that removed any beneficiary who challenged the trust or attempted to have me declared incompetent. Brandon slammed the papers down on the table. This is manipulation. Those lawyers took advantage of you. They convinced you to do this so they could get their hands on your money. No one manipulated me, Brandon. I made this decision on my own after careful thought and planning. We will see about that, he said through clenched teeth. We will contest this. We will prove you were not in your right mind. I met his eyes steadily. If you do that, you will be removed from the trust entirely. The no contest clause is very clear. You will receive nothing. His face twisted with rage. You are our mother. That money should come to us. Dad worked his whole life for that money. Your father worked his whole life and left that money to me. It is mine to do with, as I choose. Tiffany was crying now, mascara running down her face. We have been under so much stress. The mortgage, the credit cards. We just thought you would help us. You have so much, and we are drowning. There it was, the truth finally coming out. They did not want to help me manage my money. They wanted my money. Brandon grabbed Tiffany's arm. Let's go. We are not staying here. He looked at me with pure hatred. I hope you are happy, Mother. You just destroyed this family. They stormed out, slamming the doors so hard the walls shook. I stood alone in my empty house, in the silence, and felt nothing but peace. They came back the next morning. I was loading the last of my kitchen items into boxes when I heard the knock. Not a polite knock. An angry, insistent pounding. I opened the door to find Brandon, Tiffany, and my daughter Angela standing on the porch. Angela looked confused and worried. Brandon looked like he had not slept. We need to talk, Brandon said, pushing past me into the house. All of us, as a family. Angela hugged me. Mom, what is going on? Brandon called me last night saying you are having some kind of breakdown. He said you sold everything and are moving into a nursing home. That is not what is happening, I said gently. Come in, I will explain. We sat on the folding chairs and some boxes. Brandon had brought his laptop and a stack of printed papers. He had clearly been up all night researching. I have been reading about elder exploitation and undue influence, he began without preamble. It is a huge problem in this country. Lawyers and financial advisors target vulnerable seniors and convince them to make decisions that benefit the advisors, not the seniors. He pulled up a website on his laptop, turning it to show me articles about estate planning scams. This is exactly what happened to you, Mom. You were manipulated into creating this trust. I want the name of the attorney who did this. I want the name of the trustee. We are going to look into their backgrounds and their motivations. Angela touched my hand. Mom, did someone pressure you? Are you okay? I looked at my daughter, my youngest child, and saw genuine concern in her eyes. Unlike Brandon, she was not attacking. She was worried. Angela, no one pressured me. After your father died 5 years ago, I received $400,000 in life insurance, plus his pension and retirement savings. I have been living comfortably on the investment income and my Social Security. I made the trust decision entirely on my own, Brandon interrupted. Then why did you not discuss it with us first? If everything was so above board, why did you hide it? Because it is my money and my decision. I do not need permission from my children to manage my own affairs. Let me see the trust document, Angela said quietly. I just want to understand what is happening. I pulled out a copy and handed it to her. She read slowly, carefully. I watched her process the information. "So the money is in an irrevocable trust," she said, thinking out loud. "A professional trustee manages it. You get monthly distributions for your living expenses. And when you pass away, it goes to us, according to certain conditions." She looked up. "What conditions?" "That is the important part," I said. "The trust includes a no-contest clause. If any beneficiary tries to challenge the trust or have me declared incompetent, they are immediately and permanently removed from receiving anything." Brandon jumped up. "That is ridiculous. That is exactly the kind of clause a manipulative attorney would include to protect themselves." "No, Brandon. It is the kind of clause I insisted on to protect myself from exactly what you are doing right now." Angela was still reading. Her face changed as she got to another section. "Mom, there is more here. The distributions after your death are not automatic. They are conditional on the beneficiaries, showing genuine care and concern for you while you are alive. The trustee has discretion to determine what that means." "That is correct," I said. Brandon snatched the document from Angela. "This is insane. You are holding our inheritance hostage. You are trying to force us to jump through hoops like trained dogs. I am trying to ensure that my children love me for who I am, not for what I have." Tiffany, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. "We do love you, but we also need help. Our mortgage is killing us." We thought, when Brandon suggested managing your money, it would help everyone. You would have professional oversight, and we could maybe get some help with our bills. Her honesty was almost refreshing. At least she was admitting their real motivation. "So you wanted to manage my money so you could take some for yourselves," I said. "Not take," Brandon said quickly. "Borrow. We would have paid it back." "No, you would not have." Angela stood up. "Brandon, stop. Just stop." She looked at me. "Mom, I do not agree with how you handled this. I wish you had talked to us first. But it is your money. If this is what you want, then okay. I support you." I felt tears prick my eyes. At least one of my children was willing to respect my choices. Brandon was not done. "Well, I do not support this, and I am not going to sit back and watch our mother be exploited." He smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "I already called Adult Protective Services yesterday. A social worker is coming to evaluate you. If they determine you were not of sound mind when you created this trust, it can be invalidated." I had been waiting for this. Brandon, the attorney who drafted the trust, also arranged for me to be evaluated by a geriatric psychiatrist before I signed anything. I have documentation proving I was fully competent. The trust even includes a copy of the psychiatric evaluation, showing I have no cognitive impairment. His smile faded. "We will see about that. I am not giving up." Angela picked up her purse. "I need to go." "Mom, can I come visit you at Meadowbrook after you move in?" "I would like that very much." After Angela left, Brandon stood toe-to-toe with me. "This is not over. Not even close. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." He and Tiffany left. I went back to packing, but my hands were shaking now. Brandon's threat hung in the air. He was planning something. I could feel it. I moved into Meadowbrook on Friday. My new apartment was small but comfortable. A studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a large main room that served as bedroom and living area. I had kept only the furniture I needed. A bed, a small table, and 2 chairs, a reading chair, a TV. It felt sparse at first, but also freeing. Less to take care of, less tying me down. The facility itself was nice. Clean, well-maintained, with a dining room for those who wanted communal meals, a library, an exercise room, and a courtyard garden. The other residents were friendly. I met my neighbor, a woman named Dorothy, who had lived there for 3 years and loved it. I was unpacking my kitchen items when my phone rang. My sister, Linda. "Shari, what is going on?" "Brandon called me last night and said you have been acting erratically. He said you are giving away all your money and moving into an institution. He is worried sick about you." I closed my eyes. So it was starting. "Linda, I am fine. I moved into an independent living community. I put my money in a trust to protect it. I am not sick. I am not confused. And Brandon is angry because he wanted to control my finances. There was a pause, but he sounded so concerned. He said, "You have been depressed since Richard died." He said, "You are not yourself." I am more myself than I have been in years. Brandon is lying to you. Cherie, he is your son. Why would he lie? He loves you. Does he? Or does he love my bank account? Linda was quiet. Then she said, "I am coming to visit you this weekend. I need to see for myself that you are okay." Over the next few days, the calls continued. My cousin Beth, Richard's brother Tom, old friends from church. Brandon had called them all, spinning his story of a mother losing her grip on reality. Some believed him immediately. Others were skeptical but worried enough to call me. I explained the situation over and over, but I could hear the doubt in their voices. Brandon had gotten to them first, framed the narrative. I was now on the defensive, trying to prove I was not incompetent. The worst call was from Angela. She sounded torn, her voice tight with stress. "Mom, Brandon has been relentless. He calls me every day. He says we have a duty as your children to protect you, even if that means protecting you from yourself. He wants me to support him in getting you evaluated by a doctor." "Angela, I have been evaluated. I am fine." I know. But maybe it would help if you saw someone again, just to put everyone's mind at ease. Brandon is talking about legal action. He is really serious about this." "What kind of legal action?" She hesitated. "I do not know exactly. He just says he is consulting with attorneys about his options." My stomach dropped. I knew what that meant. Guardianship. He was going to try to have me declared incompetent and take legal control of me. Brandon and Tiffany showed up at Meadowbrook that Wednesday. They asked to speak with the director, a kind woman named Susan Walsh. I was not present for that conversation, but Dorothy told me later what she overheard. They told Susan they were concerned about their mother's mental state. They said I had made sudden, irrational decisions. They asked the staff to watch me closely and call them if I did anything unusual. They painted a picture of a woman on the edge of dementia, someone who needed monitoring. Susan, to her credit, saw through it, but she had to take their concerns seriously. She called me into her office that afternoon. "Mrs. Thornton, your son and daughter-in-law were here. They seem quite worried about you." "They are worried about my money, not about me." Susan smiled slightly. "I got that impression. But I do need to ask, are you here voluntarily? Do you feel safe? Is anyone pressuring you or controlling you?" "I am here completely by choice. I feel safer than I have in months. The only people pressuring me are my son and his wife." That is what I thought. I told them that you seem perfectly competent and happy here. But I want you to know they may try other approaches. Have you considered speaking to an attorney about protecting yourself? I already have. But thank you. That same day, Brandon made another move. He called my bank, claiming to be a concerned son worried about financial exploitation of an elderly parent. He asked them to flag my account for suspicious activity. He said a lawyer had convinced me to move large sums of money, and he was worried I was being scammed. The bank took his complaint seriously enough to call me. They asked if I had made recent large transfers. I confirmed I had, into a trust, and that it was all legitimate. They noted my account and closed the complaint, but the fact that Brandon was now involving my financial institutions scared me. 2 weeks after I moved into Meadowbrook, an adult protective services social worker named James Richardson came to visit. He was young, maybe 30, and seemed uncomfortable with the situation. "Mrs. Thornton, we received a complaint from your son expressing concern about your welfare and possible financial exploitation. I am required to investigate." I invited him in. We sat in my small apartment and talked for over an hour. He asked about my living situation, my finances, my mental state, my relationships with family. He looked through my apartment, checked that I had food and medication, reviewed some of my legal documents. At the end, he seemed satisfied. "Mrs. Thornton, you are clearly competent and managing well. You have made informed decisions about your living situation and finances. I see no signs of exploitation or self-neglect. I felt relief wash over me. So, that is it? The case is closed? Not quite. I have to note in my report that there have been multiple complaints from family members. That is somewhat concerning, not because of you, but because it suggests an ongoing family conflict. If we receive more complaints, we may have to investigate further. After he left, I sat in my chair and cried. Brandon was systematically trying to destroy my credibility. He was calling everyone we knew, involving agencies, creating an official record of concerns about my competency. He was building a case. 3 days later, the certified letter arrived. My hands shook as I opened it. Brandon had filed for emergency guardianship. The petition claimed I was incapacitated and unable to manage my affairs. He was seeking full legal control over my finances, my medical decisions, and my living situation. There would be a court hearing in 2 weeks. I called Patricia, my estate attorney. Her voice was calm but serious. This is what I was afraid of. Cherie, guardianship cases can be unpredictable. If Brandon can convince a judge you are incompetent, he could gain control, and that might allow him to challenge the trust. What do I do? We fight. I will represent you at the hearing, and I am going to arrange for you to be evaluated by another psychiatrist, someone who specializes in geriatric competency evaluations. We will have fresh documentation of your mental state. That night, Brandon called me. His voice was cold, controlled. You can make this easy or hard, Mom. Sign over power of attorney to me right now, dissolve the trust, and I will drop the guardianship petition. If you refuse, I will take this all the way. I will prove you are incompetent, and when I win, I will make sure you end up in a locked memory care unit where you will have no control over anything. No visitors, except who I approve. No money, no freedom, nothing. Is that what you want? Brandon, why are you doing this? Because that money should be mine. Dad would have wanted me to have it. You are just being selfish and spiteful. Your father left it to me because he trusted me to make good decisions. And look at the decisions you are making. You are throwing everything away. No, Brandon, I am protecting everything from you. He hung up. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, feeling more alone than I had felt in my entire life. The next 2 weeks were a blur of doctor appointments and meetings with Patricia. The psychiatrist, Dr. Helen Morrison, spent 3 hours evaluating me. She did cognitive tests, memory tests, asked about my daily life, my decision-making processes, my understanding of my finances. At the end, she smiled at me. Mrs. Thornton, you are sharp as a tack. Your cognitive function is excellent. There is absolutely no sign of dementia, depression, or any condition that would impair your judgment. I will put all of this in writing. Brandon, meanwhile, was preparing his own case. Through discovery, I learned what he had assembled. Affidavits from family members expressing concern. Photos of my empty house, which he framed as evidence of irrational behavior. Bank records showing I had moved large sums of money. Documentation that I was now living at Meadowbrook, which he called an institution. Letters from people saying I had changed since Richard died. The most painful document was Tiffany's affidavit. She wrote that I used to be warm and involved with my grandchildren, but had become cold and distant. She said I stopped inviting them over for Sunday dinners and had missed her children's birthdays. She suggested I might be suffering from depression. What she did not mention was that those Sunday dinners had been every week, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week, and they never brought food or offered to help cook or clean up. She did not mention that I had sent birthday cards and checks to the grandchildren, which Brandon and Tiffany apparently kept without telling the kids. She painted me as a grandmother who stopped caring, when the truth was I had stopped being their free meal ticket. But the worst betrayal came from Angela. My daughter, who had seemed supportive, had signed an affidavit too. It was gentler than Brandon's materials, but still damaging. She wrote that she was worried about me, that I had made sudden decisions without consulting family, that she thought some oversight might be helpful to ensure I was not taken advantage of. Reading Angela's words felt like a knife in my chest. My own daughter did not trust me to manage my own life. The guardianship hearing took place on a Thursday morning in probate court. The courtroom was small and depressing, with fluorescent lights and worn furniture. Brandon arrived dressed in a suit, looking professional and concerned. Tiffany wore a conservative dress. Angela came too, looking miserable. I sat with Patricia, wearing my best outfit, trying to look competent and calm, even though my heart was racing. The judge was a woman in her 50s, named Judge Margaret Reeves. She reviewed the petition and looked at all of us with tired eyes. "This is an emergency petition for guardianship," she said. "Mr. Thornton, you have the burden of proof. Present your case." Brandon took the stand first. He was convincing. I had to give him that. He spoke about his concern for me, his love for his mother, his worry that I was being exploited. He talked about my empty house, my sudden move, the large sums of money I had moved without telling anyone. "My mother has always been careful with money," he said, his voice emotional. "For her to suddenly do all of this without even discussing it with her children is completely out of character. I believe someone has influenced her, convinced her to do things that are not in her best interest." Patricia cross-examined him. "Mr. Thornton, how often did you visit your mother before she moved?" 3 or 4 times a week. "And did you bring food to these visits? Or did your mother provide meals for you and your family?" His jaw tightened. "My mother enjoyed cooking for us." "Did you ever offer to pay for groceries or help with cooking?" "That is not relevant." "Did you?" Patricia pressed. "No." "Mr. Thornton, when did you first suggest managing your mother's finances?" "A few months ago. I thought it would be helpful." "Helpful to whom?" "To my mother." "Not helpful to you?" "You mentioned to your mother that you were having financial difficulties with your mortgage. Did you think that managing her money might give you access to funds to help with your own financial problems?" Brandon's face reddened. "I would never steal from my mother." "I did not ask if you would steal. I asked if you thought managing her money might give you access to help with your mortgage." He did not answer. Tiffany testified next, crying as she talked about how worried she was. She painted a picture of a grandmother who had abandoned her family. Patricia asked her one simple question. "Mrs. Thornton, did your husband ever ask his mother for money?" Tiffany hesitated. "He asked for help with some bills." "How much?" "I do not remember exactly." "Was it more than $20,000? "I do not know." Patricia produced bank records. "These are Mrs. Shari Thornton's bank records, showing multiple transfers to your husband over the past 3 years, totaling $23,000. Did she give him this money?" Tiffany looked at Brandon, panicked. "I do not know. You would have to ask him." When Angela testified, she was reluctant and clearly uncomfortable. She said she was worried about me but acknowledged I seemed competent when she visited. Patricia did not cross-examine her harshly. Then it was my turn. I took the stand and told my story simply and clearly. I explained the trust, why I created it, how I had been evaluated by 2 psychiatrists who found me fully competent. I described Brandon's demands to control my money, his increasing pressure, his threats. Patricia introduced Dr. Morrison's evaluation report. The judge read it carefully, but then the judge said something that made my blood run cold. "I am concerned about the level of family conflict here. These are your children, Mrs. Thornton. They seem genuinely worried, even if their methods are misguided. I am going to appoint a guardian ad litem to do an independent investigation before I make a final ruling. We will reconvene in 3 weeks. A guardian ad litem, an investigator who would look into my life, interview everyone involved, and make a recommendation to the judge. The case was not over. I would be in limbo for 3 more weeks." As we left the courtroom, Brandon cornered me in the hallway. Patricia tried to intervene, but he pushed past her. "This is just the beginning," he hissed at me. "I am going to find someone who will say you are incompetent. A neighbor, a doctor, someone. And when I do, you are done." Then he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And if you think you are going to see your grandchildren again, think again. Tiffany and I have already decided. Until you give us control of that money, you do not get to see them. Ever. I felt like he had physically struck me. He walked away, leaving me shaking in the courthouse hallway. Over the next 2 weeks, the guardian ad litem, a lawyer named Douglas Hart, conducted his investigation. He interviewed family members, visited me at Meadowbrook, reviewed medical records, examined the trust documents, and spoke with the trustee. Brandon and Tiffany clearly put on their best performance for him. I could only hope he would see through it. When Douglas issued his preliminary report, Patricia called me. Her voice was worried. "Cherie, the report is not terrible, but it is not good. Douglas notes that you appear competent, but he is troubled by the unanimous family concern. He is recommending a limited guardianship where Brandon would have oversight of major financial decisions, but you would retain day-to-day control." "But that defeats the entire purpose of the trust," I said. "I know. We are going to fight this at the final hearing. But I need you to prepare yourself for the possibility that we might not win." I hung up and sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. Everything I had done to protect myself might be for nothing. Brandon might win anyway. Brandon was not content to wait for the final hearing. He wanted control immediately. I found out something was wrong when I tried to buy groceries at the store near Meadowbrook. My debit card was declined. I tried again, thinking it was an error. Declined again. Embarrassed, I paid with a credit card and went home to call the bank. "Mrs. Thornton, your debit card was frozen 2 days ago," the bank representative told me. "Frozen? By whom?" "By your son, Brandon Thornton. He came into the branch with power of attorney documents, giving him authority over your accounts. He asked us to freeze the card for your protection." My heart stopped. I never gave my son power of attorney. "Those documents are fraudulent." There was a pause. "Ma'am, we have signed documents on file. They are fake. My son forged my signature. I need you to pull those documents right now and compare the signature to your records." The representative put me on hold. When she came back, her voice was different, professional but concerned. "Mrs. Thornton, I am looking at the documents now. You are right. The signature does not match our records, and the notarization looks questionable. I am going to escalate this to our fraud department immediately. This is a serious matter." What else did he access? He requested account statements and balance information. We provided that before we realized there was an issue. I am so sorry. After I hung up, my hands were shaking. Brandon had committed fraud. He had forged legal documents with my signature and used them to try to access my accounts. This was a crime. I called Patricia immediately. She told me to file a police report right away. The police took my report seriously. The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Karen Briggs. She was probably in her 40s, professional and thorough. "Mrs. Thornton, financial elder abuse is a serious crime," she said. "If your son forged documents and attempted to access your accounts fraudulently, he could face felony charges." While Detective Briggs investigated, Brandon made more attempts. He contacted the trustee of my trust, the professional firm managing my assets. Using the same forged power of attorney documents, he tried to get information about the trust holdings and demanded changes to the distribution terms. The trustee, a man named Gerald Foster, saw through it immediately. He had dealt with these situations before. He refused to provide any information and immediately called Patricia. "These documents are obvious forgeries," Gerald told her. "The notary stamp is fake, the signature is wrong, and the whole thing has been put together using an online template. Your client's son is not very sophisticated in his criminal activities." But Brandon was desperate enough to try something even worse. 2 days later, I received a call from a credit card company I did not have an account with. They were calling to verify recent purchases I had allegedly made. "I do not have a credit card with your company," I told them. "Ma'am, an account was opened in your name 2 weeks ago. We are calling because there have been several large purchases that triggered our fraud alert system." Brandon had opened a credit card in my name, using my personal information. He had made over $7,000 in purchases. This was identity theft. I reported this to Detective Briggs as well. The investigation was expanding. Then Detective Briggs called me with news that changed everything. "Mrs. Thornton, I need you to come down to the station. There is something you need to know." At the police station, she sat me down in a small conference room. "When we started investigating your son's fraudulent activities, we did a background check and looked into his employment. Mrs. Thornton, your son works for Hendricks Investment Management. Do you know what they do? Some kind of financial services, I think. He manages investments." "That is right." And when we contacted them about the forged documents, their compliance department got very concerned. They started their own internal investigation. She paused. "Mrs. Thornton, your son has been stealing from elderly clients at his firm for at least 3 years. I could not breathe. What? He has been making small, unauthorized withdrawals from accounts belonging to elderly clients, betting that they would not notice or would be too confused to report it. We are talking about amounts between $1,000 and $5,000 per client, taken over time. He has hit at least 7 different accounts that we know of so far." "How much?" "Over $200,000. He used the money to pay off credit card debt and mortgage payments." "Mrs. Thornton, your son is not just facing charges for what he did to you. He is facing multiple felony counts of elder financial abuse, fraud, and theft." I felt like the room was spinning. My son was not just greedy and manipulative. He was a criminal who had been systematically stealing from vulnerable people. Hendricks Investment Management has suspended him pending the investigation. The State Securities Board has been notified. The FBI may get involved because some of the victims are in different states. When I left the police station, I called Angela. She needed to know what her brother had done. She was silent for a long time after I told her. Then she said, her voice small and broken, "Mom, I am so sorry. I am so sorry I did not believe you. I am so sorry I signed that affidavit. I had no idea he was capable of this." "I know, sweetheart. I am withdrawing my support for the guardianship. I am going to call the guardian ad litem and tell him I was wrong." 2 days later, Brandon showed up at Meadowbrook. The receptionist called me, sounding nervous. "Mrs. Thornton, your son is in the lobby demanding to see you. He is being very aggressive. Call security. Do not let him up here." I watched from my window as security escorted Brandon out. He was shouting, gesturing wildly. I could not hear the words, but I could see the rage on his face. That night, Patricia called. "Shari, Brandon has been arrested. He is being charged with multiple counts of forgery, identity theft, elder abuse, and fraud. His bail hearing is tomorrow." The case was building, but I felt no satisfaction. This was my son. I had raised him, loved him, tried to teach him right from wrong. Where had I gone wrong? The criminal investigation moved quickly once it started. Detective Briggs was thorough and relentless. She tracked down every victim, every forged document, every fraudulent transaction. Brandon had been stealing from his elderly clients at Hendricks Investment Management for 3 years. He would identify clients who were older, widowed, and not closely monitoring their accounts. Then he would make small, unauthorized withdrawals, usually between $1,000 and $5,000, spread out over months. The amounts were small enough that many victims did not notice, and those who did often doubted their own memories or were too embarrassed to report it. In total, he had stolen over $200,000 from 7 different people. The money went to credit card payments, mortgage payments, car payments, and expensive dinners. He and Tiffany had been living beyond their means for years, spending money they did not have. When he realized he was about to get caught at work, he panicked. That is when he decided to go after my money more aggressively. If he could get control of my $400,000, he could pay back what he stole and save himself. But his scheme with me backfired. The trust prevented him from accessing anything. His attempts to forge documents to get around the trust only brought more attention to his activities. The investigation into his fraud against me led to the discovery of his larger crimes. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Forged signatures, fake notarizations, unauthorized transactions, credit card fraud, identity theft. And that was just what he did to me. The evidence from the investment firm was even more damning. His attorney, a public defender named Mark Stevens, tried to negotiate a plea deal. The prosecutor was willing to consider it given the volume of charges and the strength of evidence. Meanwhile, Patricia filed an emergency motion to dismiss the guardianship case. She presented all the evidence of Brandon's criminal behavior, his fraudulent documents, and his clear financial motive for seeking guardianship. Your Honor, Patricia argued at the hearing, Mr. Brandon Thornton was never acting out of concern for his mother's welfare. He was attempting to gain control of her money to cover up his own criminal activities. Mrs. Thornton was not confused or incompetent. She was protecting herself from a predatory family member. She showed remarkable foresight and clarity in creating the trust. The guardian ad litem, Douglas Hart, submitted a revised report. After learning of Mr. Brandon Thornton's criminal activities, I must revise my earlier assessment. Mrs. Sherry Thornton is clearly competent and was acting rationally to protect herself. Her son's expressions of concern were not genuine, but were part of his scheme to access her assets. I recommend the guardianship petition be dismissed with prejudice. Judge Reeves did not hesitate. Petition for guardianship dismissed. Mrs. Thornton is clearly of sound mind and has every right to manage her own affairs. Mr. Brandon Thornton is prohibited from filing any future guardianship petitions. I felt relief, but it was mixed with profound sadness. I had won the legal battle, but I had lost my son. The criminal case moved forward. Tiffany filed for divorce within days of Brandon's arrest. She claimed she had no knowledge of his criminal activities and provided text messages and emails to prosecutors showing that Brandon had hidden his schemes from her. Some of the messages she turned over were about me. Text messages where Brandon discussed his plans to get control of my money. Messages where he complained that I was being difficult and stubborn. Messages where he strategized about how to convince family members I was incompetent. Tiffany was saving herself and throwing Brandon under the bus in the process. Family members started reaching out to me with apologies. My sister Linda called, crying, "Shari, I am so sorry I doubted you. I should have trusted you. I should have known better." Cousins, friends, people who had believed Brandon's story called to apologize and say they should have listened to me. Angela came to visit. She brought flowers and sat with me in my apartment for hours. "Mom, I do not know how to apologize enough. I was so stupid. Brandon kept telling me we had to help you, that it was our duty, that you were not thinking clearly. He made me feel guilty, like I was abandoning you if I did not support him. I never imagined he was capable of what he did." I hugged my daughter. "He fooled a lot of people, honey. He is very good at manipulation. How did you know? How did you see through him when the rest of us did not?" I thought about that. I started noticing about a year and a half ago. The constant visits were always around mealtimes. He never just came to talk or spend time. It was always when he was hungry. And he started making comments about my money, about what I should do with it when I died, about whether I really needed such a big house. Then he started offering to help with my finances. The offers became more insistent. I realized he did not see me as his mother anymore. He saw me as a bank account. That is so awful. Yes, it is. But it taught me something important. I am stronger than I thought, and I deserve to be treated with respect, even by my own children. The story made the local news. Headlines read, "Investment advisor charged with elder abuse and son attempts to steal mother's life savings." My name was kept private, but Brandon's face was on television. The investment firm fired him and faced potential lawsuits from the victims. Brandon's plea deal was finalized. He pleaded guilty to 5 felony counts, including elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and identity theft. He was sentenced to 4 years in state prison and ordered to pay restitution to all victims, including repaying the money he stole from his employer's clients. He also had to pay back the $7,000 he charged on the credit card he opened in my name. At his sentencing hearing, I attended. The judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I said yes. I stood at the podium and looked at my son, sitting at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit. He would not meet my eyes. "I am Shari Thornton, and Brandon is my son. I raised him, loved him, tried to teach him right from wrong. I do not know where I failed, but clearly I did fail somewhere, because the man sitting at that table is not the son I thought I had. I paused, collecting my thoughts. I knew for over a year that Brandon was only interested in my money, not in me. I watched him become more persistent, more demanding, more manipulative. When I refused to give him what he wanted, he tried to destroy me. He tried to have me declared incompetent. He turned family members against me. He forged documents with my signature. He stole my identity. He committed crimes, and not just against me, but against other elderly people who trusted him. Brandon's shoulders were shaking. He was crying. But here's what Brandon does not understand. The trust I created was not just about protecting my money. It was about teaching my children a lesson about what truly matters in life. Money does not matter. Relationships matter. Love matters. Integrity matters. I knew Brandon was failing the test, and I hoped he would change. I gave him chances. He chose to escalate instead. I looked at the judge. My son needs to face consequences for what he did. But I also hope that prison gives him time to think about who he wants to be, whether he can ever be the man I hoped he would be. I do not know if our relationship can ever be repaired. Right now, I do not even know if I want it to be. But I hope someday he understands what he threw away. The judge thanked me and proceeded with sentencing. After the hearing, I left the courthouse. Angela was waiting outside. "Are you okay, Mom?" "I do not know. It is over, but it does not feel like victory. It just feels sad." "I know." We went to lunch, just the two of us. We talked about other things, her kids, her work, plans for the holidays. We were rebuilding slowly. 6 months have passed since Brandon went to prison. My life has settled into a new rhythm, and I have come to realize that what felt like an ending was actually a beginning. Angela visits me every week now, not because she wants something, but because she genuinely wants to spend time with me. We go to lunch at little restaurants around town. We take walks in the park near Meadowbrook. Sometimes we just sit in my apartment and talk, really talk, about our lives and feelings and dreams. She brings my grandchildren, Emily and Jacob, to visit regularly. Emily is 12 now, and Jacob is 10. We bake cookies together in Meadowbrook's community kitchen. I teach them card games that my mother taught me. We watch movies and I tell them stories about their grandfather and about when their mother was young. These visits are different from before. Before, when they came to my house with Brandon and Tiffany, it was always chaotic and demanding. Brandon would turn on the television and ignore everyone. Tiffany would be on her phone. The kids would run wild. I was expected to provide food and entertainment while being essentially ignored. Now, the visits are calm and meaningful. The kids actually talk to me. They tell me about school and their friends. They ask questions and listen to my answers. They hug me when they arrive and when they leave. This is what I wanted all along. Real relationships, not transactional ones. Angela has learned from what happened. She apologized many times, but more importantly, she changed her behavior. She stopped taking me for granted. She started seeing me as a person, not just as Mom, the eternal resource. I have not heard from Brandon except for 2 letters he sent from prison. The first was angry, blaming me for ruining his life. I did not respond. The second, which came 3 months later, was different. He apologized. He said he was in therapy and starting to understand what he had done wrong. He asked if I would ever be willing to visit him or write to him. I have not decided yet. Part of me wants to forgive him and help him rebuild. But part of me knows that I need to protect myself first. Maybe someday. But not today. The trust I created has worked exactly as I intended. Gerald, the professional trustee, manages the investments and sends me a monthly distribution that covers my expenses comfortably. I have everything I need, and I do not have to worry about anyone taking advantage of me. The trust terms regarding inheritance are still in effect. When I die, the money will be distributed based on how my children have treated me during my life. Brandon, because of his criminal actions and the no contest clause, gets nothing. 0. That part of the trust is irrevocable. Angela is still a beneficiary, but the amount she receives will be determined by Gerald based on whether she demonstrates genuine care and concern for me over time. So far, she is doing well. But the point was never to punish or reward. The point was to ensure my children loved me for me, not for what they could get from me. I have found a new purpose at Meadowbrook. I started volunteering with a local organization called Elder Justice Alliance. They work to prevent financial exploitation of seniors. I give talks at senior centers and community groups about my experience and about warning signs of family members or others trying to take advantage of elderly people. I tell my story, and I see recognition in the eyes of people in the audience. So many seniors are dealing with similar situations. Adult children who suddenly become very interested in mom or dad's finances. Grandchildren who only call when they need money. Friends or neighbors who offer to help but have ulterior motives. I teach people about trusts, about power of attorney documents, about legal protections. I encourage them to trust their instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. The work is rewarding. I have helped several people recognize exploitation and take action to protect themselves. I have made friends with other volunteers. I feel useful and valued. I have also started dating. His name is Gerald. And yes, it is confusing that he has the same name as my trustee, but we laugh about it. Gerald is 72, a widower who has been at Meadowbrook for 2 years. He is kind, funny, and treats me with respect. We go to movies at the theater in town. We attend concerts at the community center. We play cards with other residents. We take day trips to museums and parks. He holds my hand and opens doors for me, and listens when I talk. I am not sure where this relationship will go, but I am enjoying it. For the first time in years, I feel young and hopeful. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled the situation with Brandon. They wonder if I should have just given him some money to make him go away. They suggest I was too harsh. I do not regret it, not for a second. Here is what I have learned through this painful experience. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you worst. Blood relation does not guarantee love or loyalty. Just because someone is family does not mean they have your best interests at heart. I also learned that I am stronger than I ever knew. I stood up to my own son when he tried to control and manipulate me. I protected myself legally and financially. I endured a smear campaign, a court battle, and betrayal from people I loved. And I survived. More than survived, I thrived. Your worth is not measured by your bank account, and your family's love should never be conditional on what you can give them materially. I raised my children, loved them, provided for them, and sacrificed for them. I did my job as a parent, but that does not mean I owe them everything I have for the rest of my life. I had to accept that Brandon made his own choices. I did not force him to steal from elderly clients. I did not force him to forge documents or commit fraud. Those were his decisions, and he has to face the consequences. I cannot fix him. I cannot save him from himself. For anyone listening who is facing something similar, I want you to know this. It is never too late to stand up for yourself. It is never too late to set boundaries, even with family members. It is never too late to protect what is yours and demand to be treated with respect. Your money is yours. Your decisions are yours. You do not need permission from your children or anyone else to manage your own life. If your adult children truly love you, they will respect your autonomy and your choices, even if they disagree with them. Yes, I lost my son. That pain will never fully disappear. I grieve for the relationship we could have had, for the man I hoped he would become. But I do not regret protecting myself from him. He gave me no choice. I gained something too. I gained my dignity, my independence, and my peace. I built a life that brings me joy, surrounded by people who care about me for who I am, not for what I have. I found my voice and my strength. The trust was not just about money. It was about trust itself. Real trust, real love, real family is built on mutual respect and genuine care, not on obligation or entitlement. That night, when Brandon and Tiffany walked into my empty house and screamed, that was the beginning of my freedom, the beginning of standing up for myself, the beginning of discovering who I really am and what I am capable of. I am Cherie. I am 68 years old. I have been through hell and come out the other side. And you know what? I am just getting started. I have years ahead of me, and I plan to enjoy every single one of them on my own terms. To anyone who has been in a similar situation or who is dealing with family members trying to control them, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set boundaries with people you love, even when it hurt? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? What would you do if someone in your family tried to control your finances or your life? I would love to hear your stories and your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes just knowing we are not alone makes all the difference. And if this story resonated with you, if it helped you or made you think, I would appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to this channel. Share it with anyone you think might benefit from hearing it. We all need to look out for each other, especially as we get older. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me this space to share what happened to me. I hope it helps someone out there who needs to hear it. Remember, you are never too old to stand up for yourself. You are never too old to start fresh. You are never too old to demand respect and dignity. Take care of yourselves, protect yourselves, and know that you are strong enough to face whatever comes. God bless.